This is why you shouldn't even take relationship advice from people who've been married, happily married for 20 years. Listen to this study. In this really unique special study, happily married couples are tracked, as well as unhappily married couples and couples who separated. They're tracked over a period of like 20 years. And they're tracked from like the very first date or the very first meet until they're married and, have set up a life together. And at that very point, they sort of check in and say how they're feeling about each other. But happily married couples, usually, what happens is when you ask them how do they meet, they have this incredible story of, I knew right away, I knew from the very first date, he was the one, she was the one. But this study actually proved this to be kind of wrong. For the majority of the couples who are now happily married 20 years later, it actually showed how on the very first date they had a record. It was kind of like a journal entry, I think. They had a record of them saying, oh, it was fine. There was no chemistry. I might not see them again. There was no fireworks. So that's how they felt at the very beginning. But what happens is generally as humans, we change our story given what present feeling we have towards something or someone. And this isn't, manipulative. This is just what happens. And if you're happily married and you feel grateful to have that person in your life after 20 years, you probably think in the very first date and time that you felt that way as well. You're like, wow, this person's amazing. But actually, a lot of them were like, oh, there's no chemistry. He's fine or she's okay. But what happened is they got to know each other and love each other. My point is that when a single person hears that from a happily married couple of, I knew right away, I knew from the moment I met her, she was going to be my wife. She had all these incredible qualities. Single people get extremely confused and deflated, and they think, oh, that person I didn't have chemistry with, they're not getting a second date. That person there was no magical fireworks with, they're not worthy of my time for a second or third date. And we cut it off quickly and prematurely just because of these things. This is where happily married people, unintentionally are doing us such a disservice, where we can't fully rely on those stories, because sometimes the best people in the world are the people you don't instantly have that chemistry with, because sometimes chemistry is just toxicity. Sometimes chemistry is like anxiety and you desperately wanting to be liked by that person, and that doesn't give a healthy, long-term, respectable relationship. So this kind of blew my mind, because I was relying on these, happily married people after 20 years of marriage and they still love each other and want to be together. I was relying on them as like the source, as the gods of like relationship advice.